Welcome to One Little Code. This is your host Abdul Majid. In this podcast, we talk to open source developers, programmers, community organizers to understand how they do and what they do. Let us get started with our
Gyan Lakshmi is the Senior Leadership Fellow of Women Who Code for Blockchain Technology. So we are very happy to have you here. Introduce yourself and tell us what you do in terms of community and also in terms of your professional career.
Excited to be a part of this podcast. This would actually be my, I think, first attempt at doing a podcast at all. So thank you so much for the invite. So hi everyone, my name is Gyan Lakshmi, and everybody calls me Gyan. And I basically work right now as a senior leadership fellow at Women Who Code, and I manage this technology track called blockchain. Women Who Code is a non-profit which is based out of US, but it has its own chapters across the globe. So there are more than 60 chapters in more than 20 countries spread across the globe. And as a part of this non-profit, the idea is to get more women to work into technology and excel in their technology careers. And how do we aim to achieve that is by helping women upskill in different technologies across the globe. Like I mentioned before, I specifically lead this community of blockchain, wherein I try to encourage more and more women to work on blockchain, understand what this technology is all about, and try and understand the different facets of this technology, the different frameworks that are underlying in this technology. So that's my current job. And even otherwise, I'm extremely passionate about diversity and more and more women, of course, being represented at various levels in the technical industry. And just a little bit about me, perhaps my background, if it could help provide some context. I have primarily been in the software industry, or in the software domain as we call it today, for about 8 years now. I started out as a software developer, a backend developer, and I worked as a backend developer, as an automation engineer, going back and forth for almost about 6 years. And post that, I sort of wanted to experiment with different new technologies like artificial intelligence or blockchain for that matter, and sort of quit my corporate job in the year 2018 and started looking out for different kinds of opportunities where I can utilize my skill as well as work with the community. And because my passion is to teach, and I really work well with community, I like to teach different technologies to people, which I have expertise in, as well as interacting with a lot of folks and understanding what their roadblocks are. So that's how I kind of became a part of Women Who Code as a volunteer first, and then turned into a full-time job. So that's me, pretty much the normal software engineer who you would find who loves coding, experimenting, researching, and just to add on, I love teaching as well. So that's been my experience and a little bit about myself.
Thank you very much for your introduction, Gyan. So how did you first get to know about Women Who Code?
So I actually, when I joined VMware in the year 2015, which was my second company, I came to know of Women Who Code as an organization where we can volunteer. So I started as a volunteer while I was working with VMware, and I volunteered to teach women in VMware about very basic things like how to build a simple web app using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and things like that. And as I started volunteering, I started taking up more and more events because I found that I was very passionate, to learn and teach. And that's how I came across Women Who Code. Though now I'm a global employee, an employee of the global team. This particular job that I'm working with right now, about this I came to know in 2019. That's when this requirement was released, and I applied for it and fortunately got into it. So yeah, basically Women Who Code is a community wherein you feel like there are a lot of other women who are in the same boat as you, so you can sometimes relate to how things are. It could be different. It's definitely different for both the genders. I wouldn't say that one's life is difficult than the other, but overall, if you see, things are even in the corporate industry or at home, if you think about a holistic lifestyle, things are different for both the genders. And for women to have this kind of community to have this kind of networking opportunity was very exciting to me, and that's how I kind of continued being the volunteer, and then moved to get the position of a city director, which is again a volunteer position, but you manage the whole Bangalore chapter, so you are at the city level. And then I moved on to this permanent position.
So you had passion for teaching, and you are in the city Bangalore where you have got a lot of opportunities. But how was this alignment happening? Like what was the synergy between you and Women Who Code?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it actually pretty much sums up my whole life in the last 5 years, honestly. So, when I got into Women Who Code, something I realized was that there were a lot of smart women around me, but I didn't know many of them, right? So, that was something, and in this forum, when people came together, like when we used to have these small brainstorming sessions for research conferences or something, I realized that I have always been a person who's little hesitant in terms of asking for help. But in this forum, I felt like that I could easily go out there and ask for help. A lot of times, I have always missed this opportunity of having a mentor in my life, and I think this platform gave me a couple of mentors in different fields, not just technology, but also in terms of like how do I manage things at work versus how do I want to learn new things, and how do I become, how do I sustain my passion. So that is something, if you think about me until the year 2015, 2016, I was just another backend developer who used to go to office, do whatever tasks have been assigned to her, and do that to my capacity and come back. And I was never interested or intrigued in exploring new things, right? And because I never had gotten the opportunity as well. But when I became a part of Women Who Code, I started learning about these new technologies, which started like really seemed interesting to me. So I learned about primarily about AI and ML with my Women Who Code peer group. There were three of us who did this very famous Coursera course, right? The 3-month course. And we were able to I was able to finish the course like with a lot of dedication, only because I had peers. I was working in a peer group, so that kind of got me really excited, and got me really motivated to think that there is a real power in women networking coming together, especially if they are passionate, right? And then when I started doing this, I also started encouraging others, helping others to learn new things, to get new opportunities to speak, or even get opportunities to write blogs, and get their blogs published in various journals, or even just some of these websites, online websites, right? And when people came back and started thanking me that, hey, your little tip helped us get so far along the way and things like that, that's when I think that's what keeps me going to be a part of this community, as well as to keep improving myself, so that I can go to the next level to help the others who are up and coming or trying to come to that level. So I think that is something, this whole experience or this whole journey for me has been really rewarding, or kept me motivated throughout, because I had a lot of peer support, as well as I had a lot of growth, not just from my motivation, or not just because I was passionate, but also because I had peers to help me out. That's I think continuing motivation for
Uh,
working with Women in Code.
that's nice. Actually, I think you brought up a very important point. A lot of times when you see this MOOCs, when people take online courses, when they do it individually, the dropout rate is ridiculously high than taking it with a peer group, because that peer group, even when you want to drop out or something, they just hold you, and then you just travel
Yeah,
along with them. And that is one of the beauty of
exactly.
being part of a community. So initially, what kind of volunteering you are doing? I think you already mentioned that you're teaching basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript to women in something like organizing event. Or how did you evolve from just teaching someone to organizing events?
So there are actually several volunteering opportunities in Women Who Code, and some of them. So the primary aim of Women Who Code is to help women in technology, right? So of course, You have to either be in the domain of technology or want to get in the domain of technology in order to be able to take advantage of this platform to the to the maximum extent. But to get started with, simple things could be just thinking about like how you can, what are the skills that you have, right? And how can you kind of translate those skills into and give back to the community, right? It always starts from there. And then when you take the first step, then the community will of course encourage you to kind of go forward and keep doing bigger things. So when basic things, how anyone can get started is like, there are a lot of in-person chapters, especially in India. We have we have 5 chapters. So we have Chennai, Bangalore, we have Pune, we have Mumbai, and we have Hyderabad. Or 6, we have one in Delhi as well. So if you find, I mean, now of course due to the lockdown, I suppose everybody's at home. But if you find members from any of these local chapters, try to connect with them and understand what is the plan that they have for that particular local chapter, and go to the meetups and attend the meetups. That is the first step, right? Attending the meetups, meeting people, that is definitely your first step forward into the community. Apart from that, there are also several online communities which, like the blockchain one that I am leading, there are 5 more communities which are completely online. So you can actually go and volunteer as a volunteer to these communities as well. And in these communities, you don't even have to straight away start with like giving a webinar or something. You can start off as a social media evangelist, or you can say that, hey, I will help evangelize this particular community because I want to learn this technology or I'm familiar with this technology. For example, we have a Python community, right? So we have active volunteers from all over the globe who are very much interested to either learn Python or they have some expertise in Python. So they either come and give webinars in the Python community, or they search for different speakers in the Python community, which helps them build a bigger network, right? So these are different ways that you can volunteer with Women Who Code. And but most important thing is, if there are any physical events, keep going to the events, because that's the only way you will meet people, you will form a network. And even if there are digital events which you're a part of, like these online communities, make sure that you're connecting with different people. Like you can just go, if you're a part of the online community, just go on the Slack group, drop a hi, right? And just interact with people, know who are the leaders in that space, right? And take initiatives. These are a couple of ways where folks can volunteer as well. So like everyone, even I started, like like I mentioned, I started with some small web application which I wanted to build for some non-profit, and then slowly we came to like AI ML topics, and then I started learning blockchain. So it's a journey, and you have to see what path do you want to take. As you start somewhere, and the moment you start networking with the right people, that peer group will automatically push you forward to wherever you would want to go. So yeah, that's my take on volunteering. In fact, I think this applies to any community that you want to volunteer for, right? You start small, you start meeting the people of the community, whether it is in person or digital these days. You start making that network, start having that connection, and then you take it forward.
I think you previously mentioned that you are also part of this, regular corporate life, like just like how I am part of. And but one day you decided that you have to make a shift, and that is something that I should say thousands and thousands of people dream every day, but the turnout rate is like very very less. And now that you are part of that group that left the corporate life and want because they wanted to do something else, how did that go? Or how did you first get that initial courage to do that, and how was the support for you?
Yeah, actually, honestly, you are right. It is really difficult because I work with huge corporate conglomerates, right? And to name the two of the huge companies that I worked with is Oracle and VMware. And these are companies where you actually think about going and retiring, right? Like you just keep wanting to work there because the facilities are so good, your compensation is so good. Honestly, when I quit my job, it was more from the ability to not do what I wanted, instead of just thinking about like, hey, I want to become like a cool freelancer or something. That was not on my mind. In fact, at that time and even now, gig economy is really scary. Right. I'm still a contractor actually with Women Who Code, and my contract is ending on June, and I don't know what I'm going to do after that. But one of the things that drove me to do that at that point in time was a lot of working conditions where I was working and how I was working, especially my team. I was completely unhappy with the kind of projects I was getting because I it was just like not something that I liked working on, and it was not at all challenging to me. So I felt that, and I had been in that rut for almost an year. So I figured that I had to, step out of this. Otherwise, I will keep staying in this comfort zone and keep getting my salary, and I won't learn anything, right? And whatever I have learned so far, like that ML course or blockchain courses that I did, if I don't get out now, then that also I can't utilize anywhere, right? So that's what kind of motivated me to get out. Plus, I always knew that somewhere down the line, whether it is 5 years, 10 years down the line, I wanted to go into the field of education. I wasn't sure if it was technology or like overall or what, but I knew that my passion was towards that field, an intersection of technology and education. So when I became really frustrated with my work, right, like one of those days when your boss is being really mean to you, I decided that, yeah, no more. I am just going to resign. I resigned, and I actually resigned and went for a trip to Russia after that. I didn't have any plans, right, to immediately start working or anything. I came back and I was almost on a 3 to 4 months break, post which I started working with a startup, and then, started consulting with certain startups, and then moved to this contract position at Women Who Code. So I would say it is difficult gig economy, especially if you have a family and you have responsibilities which you think you have to fulfill. Then I would say that you have to think a little bit about it. But if you think even a little bit that you have some kind of financial cushion, which I had at that point in time, right? I had enough amount of savings after working in corporate. My husband was still working, thank God, and I had a lot of support from my family as well as my peers to not continue in the state that I was in, right? So I think that kind of pushed me to take the call finally. And second of all, I knew there some or the other way deep down, I had that confidence that whatever happens, I have the skills to get back on track. So that also kind of motivated me to take a break no matter what. And then if I also knew that some skills if I don't have, I can learn in that break time and kind of catch up. So that was my journey. But I feel like everybody who's transitioned from this corporate to a freelancer consulting or a startup entrepreneur model has a different story and has different reasons. So, but yeah, primarily you need to have really think about having a financial cushion for you and your family, and support from your peers as well as your immediate family members really helps.
That's nice. And how is it that let's say some today there is a girl in corporate life and she wants to quit it and she wants to move into a different path, probably like freelancing or consulting. Does Women Who Code as an organization support them in any sort, like get them freelancing opportunities, or it is all individual up to them?
So as a part of Women Who Code, we have these like these different communities that I spoke about, right? Like these online communities which are catered to specific technologies, right? Like Python, blockchain. We have one on data science, cloud. We have front end and one more mobile development, right? So now what happens in these communities is that see all these freelance gigs are something that are not that do not come to you right away. It's not like a job posting, right? So if you would have asked me about job postings, I would have told that women on Women Who Code website there is a tab called jobs, which are jobs which are specifically looking to fill women in those jobs. So if you're looking for jobs, then that's definitely a great place to go and look at. But freelance gigs are more about your networking, the kind of connects that you have, and really the kind of job that you want to do. It's very heavily, based on these two factors: your network and your skill set. So, in all of these communities is when you get an opportunity to network with these different people. And if you are working on niche technologies like machine learning or blockchain for that matter, they might, people often post for things like, we are looking for someone to come and do this small project for us who has this particular skill set. So it's a short term contract perhaps, but it is a good place to get started, right? So you can, when somebody posts that kind of message, you can go back and you can message them on Slack, or you can say, I'm interested and I have the same skill sets. Or you can go back and learn those skill sets and come back and say that, hey, now I'm ready, right? So it's important for you to stay connected, not just in a Women Who Code network, but also in all of these. There are so many networks these days for women, especially. We have something called Remote Women, right? That's also another website which heavily posts only remote jobs. Think about that, right? Such an amazing opportunity. Like, you can sit here and be working for a Silicon Valley company, right? And these are all companies which are accepting of remote workers. So that's the only way Women Who Code or any other organization actually helps women or men for that matter to find freelance gigs. It is primarily your network, like how well connected you are, what different groups are you a part of, and choose the right kind of network as well, right? Not some untrustworthy gigs, because freelance gigs can be really either way or completely that way, that they may just ask you to build something after you have built it, right? You put in an effort for a month and then they don't end up paying you, right? That's not the right kind of gig to choose. So it is important to keep speaking to people, keep networking, and that's how I suppose all the communities can help you, right? Because that's the way you kind of work with all these kind of different freelance gigs.
Okay, great. So what I understood from this is that so you become part of a community, and then through that community you might get opportunities or you may not, but at least the community is there to support you, to guide you, and all those things. And if someone is actually looking for a
Yeah,
full-time job or
definitely.
something, then there are job portals.
Yeah. Job portals are definitely there, especially for women these days. Ton of things are there. There's jobs for her. Then even Women Who Code has a job portal where you can just go and look at it for free and all that. You can apply as well. But the only thing is, yeah, like, because it generally works like that in the freelance economy, right? Like, unless and until you are part of websites like freelancer.com or upwork.com, which also help. Otherwise, these communities don't really have are not like that middlemen who kind of get the gigs and then pass it on, but they are primarily more about how what is the get the gigs through people who are looking for these developers, or like people who post projects and are looking for folks to work on those projects.
That's nice. And so coming to specifically to your that blockchain technology that you are leading in Women Who Code. So what are all kind of activities that you do, or that chapter does, that part?
So, at Women Who Code Blockchain, like I mentioned before, we are a completely online community and a global community. So, we work with women across the globe, whoever wants to learn blockchain, whoever is already working in blockchain and wants to, advance their careers, and or are looking to kickstart their career in the field of blockchain, like wherever they are, at whatever stage they are. We help them by doing a lot of online events, which are like webinars, and or we have Slack study groups where people come together at certain times and then discuss about certain topics. Apart from that, we also do like Twitter chats wherein we pick a particular topic, and then we post a lot of information on that particular topic on a particular time on Twitter. So you can just go read up. You keep scrolling on social media a lot. Why don't you learn something in that meanwhile? You are doing that as well. So these are a couple of events that we do. Webinars are generally like sharing information on a particular technology related to blockchain, or something like best practices to have a career in blockchain, or even it could be even like an ask me anything in the field of blockchain kind of sessions. And sometimes we last year we also did like a couple of interviews with different women across the globe working in the space of blockchain as to what are they working on, what are the different use cases that they think are good, etc. And our Slack study groups are primarily technology oriented. So if you want to discuss about one particular thing like Ethereum, then we have a volunteer who is leading that particular, a study group, and posts resources or answers questions, discusses different topics in that space, etc. And social media, I already told you about. Sometimes we do unique events as well, like whenever we get some time, some bandwidth for the community. So, like last year, I did this event called 21 Days of Solidity. Solidity is a programming language in which you can write smart contracts for to deploy on blockchain. So I did this event in which I gave 21 days to the participants, and each day I will give them one smart contract to a problem to write that smart contract, and then the next day I used to post this solution. So this will help them to not only learn how to write smart contracts but also build their GitHub repo, which is the aim, right? At the end of the day, you want the community to have a takeaway, to have a resource for them to utilize and show that as a part of this community I have done this project and I have gained this knowledge. So something like that. And very soon I'm planning to do this 100 days coding challenge as well. Actually, it is becoming a challenge for me to create that in the space of blockchain, but I'm still working on that, so hopefully I can get that out soon as well. So these are the couple of things that we do, and we have a Slack channel on which we engage different questions. We share a lot of resources regarding upcoming events, which are not just from our community but from other communities as well. And sometimes we post job opportunities. It is not recommended because as the admin, I have to verify first whether it is a valid job opportunity or not, and we have still not opened that kind of verification yet. So we don't recommend anyone posting it, but sometimes people post as well. We can't help it. We post links to hackathons, and if anybody is interested, we tell them to form a group together and work on the hackathon. And they get stuck somewhere, they can ask the questions to different mentors, volunteers who are present in the group, who will clear their doubts and things like that. So some healthy discussions we'll have in the group about blockchain, different upcoming things that are happening in this space, etc. So yeah, these are some things that we're doing as a part of the community.
That's a lot of things. So I have one more question on the same thing. So you mentioned that you have, I think, probably like 4 chapters in India, but I understand that the blockchain technology part that you're handling is predominantly online. But still, if you see a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities or colleges of that sort, the amount of visibility for these kind of things are very, very less. So are there any specific initiatives or partnership that you guys are taking part to reach in that zone where women there also can join this kind of activities or initiatives?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, because I have been thinking about it for some time and it's been on my mind as well. But the thing is, unfortunately, the way how many of the communities work is that you need somebody, whether it is physical or online, right? You need one person who can come up as a leader and lead the community, right? Now, without that person, that community will kind of not either not exist or not be active, as simple as that. And the challenge for us is identifying these female leaders in like you mentioned, in different tier 2, tier 3 cities. Although as a part of different communities, I'm still trying to work on that. For example, last year I was the chair of AI and data analytics track at GHCI, which is Great Grace Hopper celebration India, right? And that is also it's a conference conducted by another non-profit known as AnitaB.org, right? Now, as a part of this particular conference, we had a pre-conference hackathon, which was for college students, but it was aimed only at tier 2, tier 3 cities. Like if you're a part of tier 1 city, you can't participate in this at all in the hackathon. So I think like that, I think there are several initiatives that we need to take. Currently at Women Who Code, we are not taking anything like that to reach out, because honestly, we are really maxed out at our employee capacity. We have like literally across the globe, I think we have 10 to 15 people working with Women Who Code, and who are doing all the work that is being done as of today. So in order to create something separate, especially in the Indian ecosystem, from a huge organization like Women Who Code, it is slightly difficult or a little more challenging, unless and until you have like an Indian ambassador or something. But you rightly mentioned that I think this is the need of the hour, really, to tackle this challenge, to reach women, identify these female leaders in tier 2, tier 3 cities, provide them with these free resources, right? Or just teach them the way as to how a community meetup works. And I'm sure we will find many of them kind of taking this forward. But I strongly believe that such a movement is yet to start. It will start very soon, especially now that because of the lockdown, everybody is going digital, right? So whether you are a tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 city person, your resources at the end of the day are online. And I think now slowly people will start looking at the different resources, looking at the different communities that are now moving to online webinars or online meetups or whatever. And once they get to know that such communities exist, I think some initiative from their end also needs to kind of come, that I want to take up this, or I want to sort of start something in my city. And when things like that will start coming, we will truly see this kind of revolution happen. But yeah, as of today, it's just begun, is what I feel.
To plug that, recently I spoke with Anuba, who is the founder of GirlScript. So GirlScript as an organization, again, they have chapters across tier 2, tier 3 cities. So even though they are not specifically focused on only women, their name is GirlScript, but they have got chapters there, and they're doing a good amount of job for college students in those cities. So it's just for an information.
Oh, great. That's great.
Again, as someone who is part of this community for quite some time, and you have grown from a volunteer and now leadership role. So what are the things that you have learned, across the way? Not probably like personally, which you have already shared, that you have evolved as a person, but what kind of things that you have learned that you can share with someone who is fresh out of college, or just waiting to get a good opportunity. So what kind of learnings that you can give it back?
Maybe I can say like from my experience, perhaps some of the things, especially in the domain of technology, that I'm seeing some trends coming up. One of them is I think now there is more and more need for engineers or developers, coders who can work cross functionally, instead of having expertise in just one domain, which is always good. But if you can be cross-functional and you can be flexible to work in different technologies, I think that is a plus, right? So if you are well versed in one technology, then just don't stop there. Definitely try to learn different things, right? And this could translate into, like in a technology term, into like a full stack dev, instead of just being like a front end or a back end. You can aim to learn things that are more towards full stack. This is definitely a trend that I'm seeing, that more companies are looking for full stack and people who can be cross functional, work in various domains. That is one thing that has evolved, and I have definitely learned that as well. And the second thing I would like to say is that a lot of these technologies which everybody's talking about, like these buzzwords, many of them may seem intimidating, especially technologies like blockchain, RPA, or quantum computing, all these things, right? They may sound intimidating, but they are actually not. You just need to have your basic computer science fundamentals in place, especially if you're a fresh college grad. Then there is no better time than now for you to think about getting into any of these new technologies and developing something, working on your ideas. So don't get intimidated. Like, I really used to get intimidated by all these names, and I honestly, like, in the beginning of my career, I used to think I'm completely useless, right? And that I don't know anything in computer science. And I used to always curse my parents as to why they enrolled me into computer science engineering. But it's really about how you see yourself going. Even in the technology space. So if you feel like you want to be in this space for a long time, then you should definitely think about starting to work on these innovative technologies early on with whatever knowledge you have. And the third and the last point that I have learned is that never stop doing hands-on work. You might become an online content creator, primarily, which I have become now, right? I create a lot of content for the community in the name of events, study materials, etc. Or you might become, be confined to just being a back-end developer, or you might become an entrepreneur and start your own company, right? Whatever you are, always try to do some things which are hands-on. Anything that interests you, just take it up and build something small, because unless and until you build, you don't know how things work, right? You can read a lot about things, you can read Medium articles, you can watch YouTube videos, but you have to work hands-on. And this is not just in the software or the technology domain, for that matter. This is something that is applicable in all the domains, including art, right? Unless and until you draw, you can't really comment as to what kind of material you're going to produce. And unless you keep drawing, you're not going to get if you don't keep drawing, you're not going to get better. It's the same with technology. Keep coding, keep doing things wherever you reach, whether you are the director of a particular company, whether you are the CEO, whether you are the CTO, whatever position you are in, give some time for yourself to code, to create small POCs. And this is also especially applicable for freshers, right? They keep learning new programming languages, but they don't translate those programming languages into small projects. So unless you don't translate your learnings into real-time projects, then you don't know only how you have to use that language, how you have to use that technology in the real world. Lot of material is available. You have a lot of GitHub code, like so much source code is available. Everybody's open sourcing their innovations. Just go pick up something, clone their repo, work on the same repo, no issues. Make sure that you are, playing around with code, especially for software engineers. It's very important.
So that is great talking to you.
Yes.
So can you tell people where they can, find your work or follow you?
Yeah, sure. So my Twitter handle is Gyan Lakshmi at GYANLAKSHMI, but I'm most active on LinkedIn actually. So my LinkedIn profile, in that if you search for my original name spelling, so which is actually Jnana Lakshmi, that's how my parents named me, but it has also changed and evolved over time and become Gyan. But if you search for my original name spelling, which is GNANA space LAKSHMI space T space C, you should be able to see me on LinkedIn, and I'm actually the most active over there. But I'm also there on Twitter, so you can follow me and just catch up. If you have any questions, feel free to just drop a line.
Great. We'll probably link all those links that you just mentioned in the show notes and YouTube description. So once again, thank you so much, Gyan, for taking your time and sharing your knowledge with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abdul. It was really great talking to you, and I'm really excited to see how this turns out.